And I want to just go through really quick and introduce our panelists, kind of in order as I see them. We have Jonathon Cummings. And Jonathon, I actually want to note that you are you're out of graduate school. You graduated in 2015, and you have an MBA. And you are in government policy and policy studies at Cornell. Is that right?
Yeah. Oh, MPA.
MPA. Sorry, did I say MBA?
Yeah.
What's MPA?
It's a Master's of Public Administration.
Great, thanks.
So, government, public sector, MBA. You're interested.
Thanks, wonderful. And then we have Colleen Kremmelbein, who's a class of 18 in graduate school right now in childhood education. And we have Anastasia Koulopoulos, and also class of 18. I hope I didn't damage that too much. You're going for an MAT in Adolescent Education, Biology IC. And we have Lexa, Pennell, class of 18, Master's of Science in Accounting at IC. Here's our workouts today. So I want to make sure that there's time for you to raise your hand and ask questions. Don't feel like this has to be too formal. I have a number of questions I'm going to ask the panel to answer, but there's really no bad question. Just to let you know too, and I received my master's degree from Ithaca College as well. So I went straight from undergrad to grad school. My choice was not to take a break. So I have a little bit of dated experience about it, but it was really one of the best things I ever chose to do, and I love my experience. So without further ado, I'm going to jump out with the first couple questions here. So how did your undergraduate experience prepare you for your graduate experience? Anyone can start.
Okay, I'll start. So my undergrad was, I was English education, so I'm certified already in English education from 7 through 12. And now I'm doing childhood education. So a lot of my undergrad was in education. And so now I'm continuing my path in education. So a lot of my classes were very similar. They're just a little more intense now, and they ask a little bit more of me. But I felt like I was totally prepared by the IC's education department for grad school. I came in thinking I was going to be overwhelmed and it was going to be something really difficult and I was really going to struggle. And of course there was a little bit of struggle because it's grad school and there's bigger responsibilities. But I felt that my undergrad career, especially due to the education department, had really prepared me for the responsibilities that I was going to have to handle in grad school. So I had to do student teaching like in undergrad, just like I'm doing now in grad school. And I had to do a whole bunch of reading and write a whole bunch of papers in undergrad, just like I do now in grad school. And like I said, it's a little more intense in grad school and there's a little bit more responsibility, but I feel like I didn't come in completely blown away by the responsibilities and the tasks that I had to do.
I guess I'll go next. So for me, I actually was a biology major first, actually here at IC, and I didn't decide until maybe halfway through my junior year that I wanted to now go into education. And so I had some teaching experience with the bio department doing TA work, figured that out, and I was definitely prepared even though I didn't start as like an education major. I felt like the difference between workload was just me being able to manage my time better and being able to figure out like how to schedule myself so that I had enough time for everything and still have time like for myself and not just only for school. But I definitely felt prepared for the workload. It wasn't like it was a monster jump, it was like a leap, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I would agree with that, especially staying at IC. I feel like all of my undergrad classes, because I took the same program, I was accounting undergrad and accounting grad, so it was like an easy transition into grad school because I knew my professors, I knew about all the resources, so obviously classes and stuff are a little bit harder, a little bit different, but I knew how to handle that because of the resources that they gave us undergrad, like I was familiar with those.
So for me, my degree program over at Cornell University, it's a professional degree. So the way the professional degree is tailored, it's that you take a whole bunch of courses that are pretty much hands-on, where you learn applicable skills to translate to the real world, versus like a theoretical course or like courses where you do a lot of studying and reading to go into a PhD program. So I took a whole bunch of classes like consulting, where I actually had to consult for a government agency, Tompkins County government and stuff. And so what prepared me at Ithaca College for all of that was that I was overcommitted student. So by being overcommitted, I mean I was involved with student government. I was an RA. I was a co-president of the senior class, like a whole bunch of those things. So being able to balance that workload while in school and taking on these different projects really helped me to translate what I learned in Ithaca College to my degree program, because it's a professional degree program. You take a whole bunch of courses where you do projects. So that's Ithaca College prepared me in that sense.
Yeah, definitely. I would say, just out of curiosity, how many of you are involved in some kind of student organization here at the college? Many of you are. I'd like to note that that is often a really good preparation for your next step after undergraduate, be it grad school or your first job or future jobs. Is the organization leadership you learn those is something you don't always just get from your theoretical work. So I was really glad to hear that you were taking that with you, and many people said that to me as well in the past. So I think some of you touched upon this, but just if there's anything where you can add is what are some of the major differences between undergraduate and graduate school? I think some of you touched upon the type of work. I saw a little bit of, it was edged up a little bit, you know, my classes were this, but now they're that. Can you share a little bit more about what that is about?
I can start. We'll just go this way. So one of the main differences that stuck out to me when I started graduate school, which kind of shocked me actually, was the age difference of people in graduate school. Because, so when I graduated from Ithaca College in 2015, and I worked in a law firm for a year, and then when I went to SEPA, that's a program, the Cornell Institute of Public Affairs, the average age was 26 and 27. And I mean, there's even some people with a family and children who hang out at Cornell and everything. I was like, whoa, this is interesting. So that was the main thing that really, I was taken aback by that, because I'm so used to being in undergrad where everyone was pretty much around my age group, versus going to graduate school where, I don't know, someone's like, oh, my wife from Brazil is coming to visit me. And I have to go back home and go see my kids. I'm like, oh, that's interesting. So that's the biggest thing that really stood out to me when I started graduate school. Pretty sure you guys can talk about a whole bunch of different things.
Yeah, I would totally agree with that the age difference was something that I noticed, the range of ages. And also, I mean, the transition from high school to college, you see that you become very much more responsible. Like, you have to determine if you are going to go to class, if you are going to get the grades that you want. It's not like high school where your professors will talk, where your teachers will sort of guide you through things. You are very much responsible for things, and you are responsible for the grades you get and the work you put in. Of course, you have guidance from professors, but it's kind of all on you. And I saw that increased a little bit in grad school, where, again, I still have guidance from my professors. No one's leaving me flailing or anything like that, but there's a whole new sense of responsibility and maturity that comes with grad school, where you have to put in the effort, and if you don't, that's not your professor's problem, that's your problem. You have to, it's on your plate and it's your responsibility. So like we are doing in the education program, we do an inquiry project, and it's kind of like our thesis, and it's all dependent on ourselves. It's a question we ask ourselves to better our practice, and we have advisors, but your advisor is there to guide you. They're not there to hold your hand and walk you through every step. And that's just one example, but it's in a lot of things where I realize that I have to step up to the plate and I have to do what's best for me, and I can't wait for someone to tell me what to do. I have to know that it's my responsibility to know for myself. And I know that seems kind of scary, but it's not, honestly. It's really freeing, and it makes me feel like I can do these things, that my professors trust me to do these things, and that they're always there if I miss a step and I feel like I need some sort of guidance.
And to kind of jump off of that, the relationships I feel like you have with your professors, excuse me, is completely different. Like, I was lucky here, the bio department's really small, so like I had relationships with all my professors and they knew who I was. But when you're in grad school, like, it's completely, I don't know, it's not completely different. It's just you have the relationship where it's more so I found like if you need help with anything, if you shoot them an email, like they're there, and you have more of like not a friendship, but like a kind of, instead of being like a professor and a student, you're almost kind of at some points equals talking about something like, hey, I'm confused on how this is happening in the classroom, or how can I fix this? I need help with this. And like they're totally there. Even though you have a lot more responsibility on your own, they're always going to be right there and kind of as sometimes more of a mentor than just a professor or someone like a teacher figure.
Yeah, I feel like it's really just undergrad kind of stepped up, especially with the whole independence thing. I know Workwise anyway, like in undergrad they'll say like, okay, you're in a 3-credit course, like this means you'll be studying X amount of hours. But like you can kind of get by without doing that. In grad school you can't, not in my program anyway. And same with readings. I know that was like another thing undergrad. It was like, oh, okay, like for the most part you can get by like skimming or like, I don't know, like it'll be fine. But like grad, it's like you have to take so many hours to read things and actually be prepared for class. So I feel like it's a lot of doing things on your own, because I know in some of my classes there may not be that long, but the amount of time you're putting into that class outside of it is kind of the entire class, because you need to prepare so much to go to your one class. Whereas like in undergrad, you're kind of going to the class and then just like maybe doing a homework or whatever afterwards. So you definitely have to take a lot more responsibility on your own. But at the same time, it is really nice because like all of your friends, right, or in grad school are working. I mean, like you're in grad school, your friends are working. So it's kind of like you're almost, I don't know, you are still in school, but you're like more independent. I don't know what I'm saying, but you get me.
I think especially when you go straight on from undergrad to graduate school, a lot of people have said to me they see it as I'm not done exploring this field. I really do want to eventually get my doctorate. You know, it's that pathway. Like my son, like myself, didn't want to take a gap year or two. I really wanted to go straight forward while I was still in that studying mode. So I've heard a lot of different stories around your identity and how you are. If you're going to the same college for undergrad and then graduate school, that you're still seeing students that you knew as friends who are still in undergrad, but you're working at a different level, and maybe a lot of your classmates have gone on and moved away. So kind of back to Jonathan's point is either at the college where you did undergrad or wherever you go to for graduate school, sometimes you're meeting people. You're going to be meeting a whole slew of people, and often it is not couched in a residential life either, where you're meeting people through that experience. You are probably living in your apartment, you're meeting people who are probably a lot older than you in many cases if you go to school away from where you went to undergrad. And so it's almost like starting all over, but it is something also, at least I personally found that transition wasn't that bad. It was actually quite exciting because I was prepared for it. That the new people, the new environment, if you are changing schools, will definitely affect kind of how that experience is. For graduate students, first of all, really quick, how many of you in the room are thinking about going on to grad school? Quite a few. So how many of you are seniors? So those who are seniors, have you already applied for grad school and you're ready to go at this point? Who are juniors? And are you starting to look at grad schools now? This is about the time you want to do that. So the question really quick is like, what is your advice for graduate students just about to enter their first year? So we have a few people here who are about ready to go, graduating soon. And what's your advice? What do you wish you knew then do now, or what are some things that you think really helped you with that next step?
So what I found was that taking a year off and working, I'm not saying that everyone should take a year off. You should do what you feel is best for you. But I took a year off and worked at a law firm. And I was trying to figure out whether or not I wanted to go into do my MPA, do government policy type of thing, or go to law school, because a lot of people in government have law degrees, right? But it turns out that people who get a law degree tend to, a lot of them, the market for lawyers is very saturated, so the value of a law degree isn't as valuable as it used to be. You just go into a lot of debt. And while I worked at the law firm, I also really weighed the costs and the benefits of going to law school versus doing an MPA degree. And also I found out that my MPA degree at Cornell University is actually on average $20,000 to almost $30,000 cheaper than the law degree. Like one year of a law degree. So CEPA tuition is like $36,000, right? Plus you have housing, whatever room board. And then you have, for the law school, 1 year would be like 50, 60. if I wanted to do an MBA in the Jonathon school, it would be 80,000. So I really thought carefully about that. And it was really good. So I took the year off to really consider if this is what I really wanted, because I was a little confused. When my dad went to law school, so he wanted to, I don't know, he wanted to make me a little version of me. That's what he meant. So I really thought about it. Taking time off isn't a bad thing. Like I said, the average age of graduate school in my area is 26 and above. The average age for people who are doing PhDs is even higher. If you're considering doing a PhD, even law school, it's 27, 28. So there's no rush to go to grad school. But it's a lot easier to just go and get it over with if you still have that momentum with you. So that's what I would say. If you feel like you have that momentum with you, go ahead and do it. But by the time you get to the final semester of your final year, it's gonna feel like a super senior year, just so you know.
So my advice is kind of obvious, and I'm sure you've heard this before many times, but stay organized. I am not a very organized person, and I was kind of forced to become one in grad school. And in being organized, I mean organize like your papers and your materials and things like that, and make sure you always have those materials, but also like you should know how to organize like what is grad school, what is my personal life, what is both of those things. So if you stay organized in the sense that most people think of organization, where you like have a calendar or an agenda and you writing everything down, that's really good, because then it'll keep you organized in your personal life, and it'll give you, because that time is really valuable, the time for yourself where you're not thinking about grad school. Because if you're thinking about grad school and whatever it is you're learning in grad school, 100% of the time, your head is going to explode. You need a little bit of time just to relax and think about nothing, or think about whatever show you're watching on Netflix. So staying organized was really important. My first week of grad school was really rough because I wasn't organized, and I could get away with that in undergrad. And so I learned to write everything down and make sure I did my homework every night, and making sure I did my homework every night ensured that I had like at least all of Sunday for myself. Sometimes a little bit more than that, but not very often, especially in the first few weeks of grad school. So yeah, get organized, and also find like a mentor who can help you. So like someone who has gone through grad school before, or someone who's older, or a professor, someone you can talk to about things that you might think are like dumb, but you don't feel embarrassed to ask these questions. Having someone there who can guide you through the process of grad school, especially because it's a huge transition, is really helpful.
I kind of am going to echo that, where with time management is kind of similar to organization, because I was no time management in undergrad. I was that person that the papers due at 5 p.m., I'm in the library at 6 p.m. just starting, or 7 p.m. and 6 p.m. I'm in the library just starting it. So it was like, a world shift, because I also decided to work while in grad school. In some programs, they might try to encourage you not to, because of the amount of workload you have for school. And so it became like deciding, you have to really chunk your time. And I know I have a routine. My lesson plans are due Thursday night. It means I'm spending my prep period Wednesday, or my lunch period during Wednesday, writing lesson plans, finishing them Wednesday night to get them so that they're ready to submit Thursday. And if I want to work, so I waitress, I'm going to work Saturday night and Friday night, and that becomes my social time as well, because you need that time to yourself. And then Sundays, I don't do no schoolwork, I don't work. That is my day to sit in my PJs, and my roommate makes fun of me because that's my day. I won't get out of PJs. I'll be in my PJs from the time I wake up, and I'll stay in them until I have to go to bed. So yeah, just making sure you have the organization and the time management to get what you need done, but also take care of yourself. Because if I've had a weekend where, I didn't get my Sunday off, and I was a mess the next week, because you never had that time to take a breath, de-stress, be able to figure out what you're going to be doing the next week.
I think time management and workload definitely. I know my senior spring semester, I was in ICNYC, so I was taking one class, pass fail, and then I just interned the whole semester. And before that, I like had my schedule, so like at least once a semester or one class a semester was like an ICC class or like liberal arts or something. But in grad school, like you don't like have those classes, like they're all hard. So I think that was like a big thing going in, was like I had my 5 classes and they were all for my major, they were all difficult. So time management definitely helps with that. I know last semester it was kind of a wake-up call for me because I've always been okay with time management, but I've never really like time managed my personal life, if that makes sense. But grad school kind of takes over, so you have to make sure that like you're taking a day to yourself, or you're like actually planning fun things and like hanging out with your friends or working out or doing whatever you can to de-stress. I think that's really important.
Add something really fast. So I didn't learn this till I went to grad school, but did you know that you could actually list your classes on your resume? That's a thing in grad school, or maybe I was just under a rock and I didn't know. So once again, when I was talking about my degree program, so it's a professional degree program. So when you choose to go to a graduate school, I mean, yes, the reputation of the school is also important, but also look what you want to get out of it. So with my program, like I said, it's a professional degree program. So I've taken classes like a consulting infrastructure finance course, where I've actually learned how to make finance sheets for infrastructure projects. You know, politics policy course where like the professor is actually a local elected official in Ithaca, in Dryden, Tompkins County. And like you divide half the class as Republicans, half as Democrats, and debate each other on topics. So you have to figure out what skills you want to get from graduate school. Well, if you're interested in like a professional degree or MBA or a JD or something like that, you should try to think about what skills you want from graduate school.
How about prepping for grad school? And we've talked a lot about that kind of transition and like your first year in and that sort of thing. But for those who are now looking at or have started underway with, you know, they are looking to go to grad school after their senior year. And I know, Jonathan, you didn't go to Ithaca College, so I think that perspective would be especially helpful. But, you know, what made you choose? And how hard was it to prep? I mean, there are the tests you might have to take depending on the degree you want to do. You know, what did you kind of have to go through? What was your timing around starting that?
And help me get into graduate school.
Yeah, just, you know, when did you start looking at it? When did you have to apply? You know, just some very basics.
Okay, so in 2015, I was unsure of what I wanted to do. So I went back to New York for like a month, New York City for like a month. And I came back to Ithaca because I got a job at a law firm here. And I didn't want to stay on my family couch, so I did that. So during the time when I started working at the law firm, around February, no. So I started looking at schools in November, December. And I filled out some applications and I applied by December, January. Also, the programs I applied to, they were on roll-in admissions basis. So if you apply, they like you, you get it. It's not like to like Harvard Kennedy School. So Harvard Kennedy School, their MPA program, they have a strict deadline by December 1st. So anything that comes in after that, they won't even consider your application. And they don't have admissions for the spring. So it's just for that year. Versus Cornell or GW or NYU, they have rolling admissions basis. So for SEPA, I applied officially in January, and I heard back in March. The same with GW and NYU. What really helped me, however, with getting into those programs was talking to the admissions staff, going to visit the school and sitting in a class and speaking to students. It's just like getting a job, it's like networking. I mean, I think the admissions committee would rather give admission to someone that they know and they're like, oh, this person seems interested, to keep bothering us or asking us questions. Oh, this student who's in the program can speak highly of the student. So I mean, if you have all of that, even if someone has a higher test score, that person is more likely to get it. It's just like who you know. So I actually reached out to some people in SEPA, my program, in the admissions team, and I visited and I just, I got to know some of the students right there. And I sat in a class, actually my senior year when I was here, I sat in a class just out of curiosity, just to see if I was interested in graduate school. I also applied to GW, their Masters in Political Management program. And I visited and had like a special tour at Capitol Hill, and I went. It was pretty cool. And I got to meet their director, and so I like knew the people on the inside. The one school I applied to that I didn't get into was NYU because I didn't really do that. I didn't really go out of my way to network the way I should have for NYU, and my test scores weren't that high, but neither here nor there. But the thing that really helped me was networking and trying to get to know those people, because it's easier to say yes to someone you know versus someone you don't.
And definitely adding on again, if you're thinking college experience,
Yes.
adding to that as well your application. Again, that was something you started your junior years about or knew. Okay, but
Oh yeah, like I said, so my senior year, I had a professor, so I was a cultural and communication studies major, and my advisor was Jonathon Brown. You guys ever took a class in Cornell? So I spoke to him a lot. He was my mentor here, so I spoke to him a lot about graduate school or PhDs or law degree or whatever. And so he actually was the one who told me about the MPA program over at Cornell and encouraged me to go check in and sit in the class. So he encouraged me, and I sat in the class. He wrote my letter of recommendation, and so like he pretty much encouraged me to apply to CPA. And it did work out. I mean, if I didn't hang out with Jonathan or have him as a mentor or have him check my application or have him give me a letter of recommendation or any of those things, I might not have gotten that. I might have ran away to DC with aspirations of working in the government and see what the government's like.
well, you bring up a good point too, and to the rest of the panel. Networking. Do you all feel like you also to form those relationships or got to know people that helped you make the decision to go to grad school and get into it? That power of networking not only goes towards a job in the future, but it's a really good point about looking at going into a graduate school program. If there's anything you want to add or highlight?
Yeah, my situation is kind of different because I only applied to grad school here at IC. I didn't apply to grad schools anywhere else because I figured if I didn't get into IC, which I did, so yay, I was going to either take a year off or go right into teaching and then get my master's online or something like that. But I was pretty, not to like pat myself on my back, but I was pretty confident that I would get in here, and I did. And I was confident because I had relationships with the professors in the education department, and the preparations that I had to do to get into the program. Like I had to take the GRE, which I was really nervous about because the last time I'd taken a standardized test was the SAT, and that was a long time ago, so I was really nervous, but my professors really helped me with that, and that ended up being like a very small hurdle. That wasn't very difficult at all. So, but then, like I said, I had these relationships with the professors, and one of the conditions of getting into the school was you had to have an interview. So I interviewed with Jean Copenhaver-Johnson, who's the head of the department. She's on sabbatical right now. And I've known Jean for a long time. I've had classes with Jean. So I went into the interview. Of course, I was taking it seriously. I wasn't going to think of it as a casual thing at all. But I didn't feel as nervous because I already had this relationship with her. And it ended up being, it was still very much an interview that they were doing to help see if I should be admitted into the program. But it ended up being not so scary and not so intimidating because Jean knew me and she knew what questions I would be willing to ask and talk about, and I knew her, and so I knew kind of what she wanted to hear and what I should really talk about and highlight. So really having those relationships, it's kind of a different sort of networking because education is not the thing you know networking to be associated with. But you still have to know people. If I decided to apply to a different grad school at a different place, I would have done similar to what John was saying. I would have talked to the people who work there and gotten to know them, and I would have networked as much as education lets you network. I wouldn't have just gone in and been like, hi, this is me, I want to go to your school now. So getting to know my professors really helped, and with other things that I had to do, like test the GRE and have good grades and things like that.
So for me, I did grad school prep like the complete opposite wrong way you don't want to do it. So I didn't decide until second semester junior year that all of a sudden I was going to take a left-hand turn, and instead of going into science research, I wanted to teach. And so I think I decided in like February or March I wanted to do that. So then I had to scramble to make sure there's sometimes that there are prerequisites to get into a program, or they're going to have classes they really want you to take. So I was really lucky with the way my schedule worked out is I was able to take all the prereqs for the MAT. I think you have the same prereqs for childhood ed. That, you know, some psychology courses, you had to take a field experience course to see if you actually liked being in the classroom, things like that. So I had to scramble my senior year to take those courses. And then because I didn't know, I again also only applied to IC, and I kind of had this like, well, if I don't get in, I'll take the year off, or I had started to apply to another program, but then I would be committing to living at home, commuting, and I didn't know how I felt about that. So then I had decided really late I wanted to do it, and then I had to scramble for the classes, and like my application, I was able to get it in. They had the same rolling admissions. I think they had a deadline in like March that they wouldn't accept anymore, but I think I got my application in by like November or December time. Maybe even January. So yeah, so I was kind of frazzled and disorganized the whole time I was applying. So definitely get your research and know, like I didn't even know IC had an education program until I had like been talking to my advisor, who was also one of my professors in the biology department. I said, I think I want to go into education, but I'm not sure. And he referred me to a professor in the physics department who is a part of the graduate education program for science students. And that's how I kind of got the in and found out about this program. So again, the networking thing is huge because I actually also interviewed with him. So he already knew I was interested in the program. And in the interview, again, I was less nervous, and it was like, okay, he knows I want to do this, and like now I just need to be able to express it and make sure they can tell me I'm a good fit for the program and what they're looking for in students.
My program is a little bit different, as in if you want to be a CPA, you need 150 credits, so like you don't really have a choice but to go to grad school. I mean, there's other ways out of it, but I still looked at other programs, and I think one of the biggest things, Jonathon was kind of saying it earlier, is like know what you want to get out of it. I looked at all of the courses that I'd be taking in these different programs, and some of them were all accounting courses, like some of them were all tax, which is what I want to do, so I was kind of geared towards that. But there was also programs that were just like you don't need to get the 150 credits in specifically like accounting courses, so some of the programs were just like business classes. And I guess it just depends on what you want from that. I know one of my friends she did accounting program undergrad with me, and right now she's just in like a general business program. So yeah, it's not really helping her with the CPA, but also she has like different experience, like different management experience, I guess. Whereas my courses are more helping me towards CPA. So, I mean, it goes for whatever you guys are studying too. I would really look at what classes that you're going to be taking in these programs, because I know for probably every major there's like 5 different masters you can get that are just like slightly different. Like I know there's like an MS in accounting, there's an MBA in accounting, so like whatever program, I'm sure there's multiple different ones, and they're like very slightly different. So I definitely look into the courses to see what you really want from it.
Thanks. I want to give some time now for the audience to ask questions, so we keep things going. Does anybody have any questions you'd like to throw out about grad school? Yes.
Kind of about taking a year off, or like multiple years off before you go to grad school. Kind of like what are the pros and cons? And is it, because I know a lot of people were mentioning like momentum, but if you know yourself and you can get back into it easily, like kind of like what are the pros and cons?
The question, so people can hear the back, is about the pros and cons of taking a year off between undergrad and grad school. Get ready for it.
I'll start it. I didn't take a year off. I went straight in, and the one con to that was I definitely felt burnt out, even just at the beginning of the program, because I graduated from IC in May, and then my program started maybe a week and a half after I graduated. So I went home for like 5 days, then came back up here to start school again. And it's hard because when that happens, I saw all my friends who just graduated, they're going out, they're, having all these experiences before they get into the workforce and doing all of their post-grad life. In my life, it just felt like it just kept going in the same direction. But the one thing that was nice for me, at least for some of my loans, because I went straight into school, I was able to defer them, so I'm able to get all of my education done before I can have to pay some of these loans back. But I have one that didn't let me do that, so I'm paying loans right now as I'm also in school. So it's kind of a caveat. It's like,
Yeah, I obviously went straight after because my program, like, you need the credit, so it would not make sense for me to take a year off. But I know, like, I did an internship my last semester, and that was basically, like, what I'm going to be doing my first year working. So that experience helped me, I think, so much with my program now. I know personally I wouldn't be able to take a year off and go back. Like, I wouldn't go back to school, I'd be done. But, like, if you're able to take a year off, I think that working for a year and then going back to school would help you no matter what your program is, like getting that real world experience and being able to apply it, whatever degree in your grad year, definitely. But for me, I know, like, just going back to school, like, I knew my professors, like, I was in school mode already, like, taking a year off and going back just wouldn't have worked for me. But there definitely are pros for it too.
So I really appreciated being able to work and have my own money. And felt very good. So just taking time off for me, it's fine. And I can kind of advocate for it. Because once again, I mean, especially if you know that you're going to go back to school, it's okay to take time off. But once again, like I said, the average age is 26 for an MBA program. Now my girlfriend is doing her PhD program, and she worked for a company. She worked for 4 years, and she went her master's and she's doing her PhD now. So it's totally fine too. The one thing I would say, however, is that the skills you develop by working, you create a different level of discipline versus being in school. So in graduate school, depending on how your group of friends are or your social circle, I mean, yeah, you still go out and do stuff like undergrad, but if you work and take time off, I think you just gain a certain level of discipline where you're like, okay, I have to get up at 8 to go be at work and then do this. You feel more disciplined because you have to pay bills, you have to like work and make your own money, and you have to start paying back loans. You just gain a level of discipline that you can't really get if you're a professional student.
There's a book at the bottom of the door on the outside. When they try, okay, we're not gonna be much longer. I just want maybe. It's like between the wall and the door. It's okay, just in case it gets noisy. No worries, we're not gonna keep you much longer. Sorry, it's just getting noisy. I think some sessions got left out earlier. Thank you very much. One thing I want to jump in and say, just for something to keep in mind, even though you're all young and you're looking at, where you're going to be in the next 5 or 10 years, is if you hear about graduate students, a lot of times at Cornell who have families. They might have not gone to grad school or gone for their doctorate until they started a family and been working for a while. And I have some very good friends who did that. And it's definitely very, very possible, but just think about adding on that responsibility to your life. So if you're thinking about doing grad school, get it through sooner than later, that's another thing to think about. There's no right or wrong answer on that, but it's also, when you have the freedom to focus on yourself and be able to do this, it is a lot easier in the future. But does anybody have any questions? Again, sorry for the noise, yes?
So my question deals more with if you have any friends, it sounds like you all kind of went into your grad program almost immediately, but if you have any friends who kind of found an employer who's kind of waiting for their grad program, do you know of that kind of situation or kind of how to encourage an employer to get you into that position?
I think it depends on kind of what you want to go into. For education, that's not super possible. I feel like your employer does pay for that, so I haven't really heard about that. But for like my brother, his job right now, it's like they gave him like a 2-year contract, and they're like, work the first year, starting your second year, we'll start to pay for your master's. In the hopes, obviously, he'll stay with that company for a while and everything. So I think it kind of depends on what you're working on doing.
Well, also, if you're interested in the employee degree program where you work at the school and you take classes at night and you can pretty much either take a couple credits for free or pay at a very reduced cost, that does help. That was something I actually looked into when I graduated, I looked at NYU. I applied for a job at NYU Law School, and they're like, oh, sorry, but the American Bar Association has this rule where employees can't get a law degree, work and get a law degree. So I was like, fine. But there's a possibility. The employee degree program is a thing, and also there's some private sector firms and some government agencies that will pay for people to go and get an advanced degree. There are some people in my program who are from different countries, like this girl told me she's from Japan, and the government of Japan is paying for her to come to see if I can get her master's. It's actually pretty common with a whole bunch of, actually all my classmates. Yeah. It's just about, you just have to find the opportunities.
My question is for Jonathan. So, coming, you didn't go to ISCO for your grad school and going to like a top program that's like Cornell, IBM. Did you ever, like I applied to a business school and I'm going for my master of science, as a top business school. Do you ever feel like you're adequately equipped in that to like a top school?
Can you repeat the question so I can hear?
Did I ever feel like I was out of my league trying to get to like a top school? You know, actually, I did at first. I did. It's a little intimidating applying to like take Cornell, Harvard, Yale, one of those schools. But I mean, if you don't get in, it's fine. It's just like it's just the same as just never applying. Just give it a shot, right? So I applied at Cornell, and I actually didn't expect to get it because, you know, it's Cornell, right? So I didn't expect to get it, but I got it. And the level of people who are there, it's intense. I mean, because of the nature of my program, you know, government, politics, whatever, like there are people from, like a close friend of mine, he's from Pakistan. His grandfather is the Supreme Court Justice of Pakistan. And that's something that's just so casual at those schools, and that it took me a little bit of time to get used to that. But once you get in, and you find out that the level of work that you did in college, or whatever you did in your undergrad, actually does prepare you for graduate school. It's just discipline. You just have to be willing to do the work. The only difference is that these people are from a lot of them are from wealthy, influential families. That's really the main difference, in my honest opinion.
There's also students that are going to be from like everywhere. Like I know, like grad school here, like everyone in my class is from IC. But my friend's at Cornell, and she did undergrad here, and like there's like a few kids from Cornell, but like everyone's from different schools too. I don't know. I didn't really realize that. I guess either looking at other grad programs.
It sounds like it's more likely that you, for Ithaca College isn't necessarily known for its grad school, I don't think. But we do have great grad programs, and of course PTOT has this transition that goes in. So it's kind of like a best known secret. But I feel like the preparation is excellent at Ithaca College for any grad school wherever you're going to go. I think most definitely.
Yeah, sure. I felt very prepared coming out of Ithaca College. The only thing which I didn't know was that in a public administrative degree, econ is a thing. And I tried to avoid econ and statistics as much as possible. And now I have to take it, which I didn't know. So I guess also looking at what's required for the program would have been a good idea.
You can't escape econ, is that what you're
I
saying?
couldn't escape econ. But beyond that, like being able to write, like I was actually a pretty good writer from Ithaca College, and going into graduate school, I was like, oh wow, okay, I can write pretty decently and get an A in my class. I was like, oh wow, I feel good. Yeah.
Well, it looks like we're just about close enough time, but I don't want to stop unless anybody's questions. It's about quarter up. Does anybody have any other questions or comments? Yes.
Like when trying to get into the school, take like the GRE or the GMAT or whatever, how difficult was that process? And like thinking you were gonna get into Ithaca, like because if you're like an average student, like what are the chances of getting in? Like, because I know Ithaca usually kind of favors their own students in a way. So what was like your opinion going into that?
So like I said before, I had to take the GRE, and I found out that I had to take the GRE about a month before the last time I could take the GRE. So I had like a month to prepare for this, and I so clearly remember this because it was like one of the worst days of my life where I found out, not the worst days of my life, it was pretty bad. I found out I had to take the GRE and I had a panic attack. I was like, how am I going to study and prepare for this in a month while also applying to grad school and it was my senior year and doing student teaching and doing everything that comes with being a senior in undergrad. And so I freaked out, and I went out and I bought like the typical GRE book that you can get at Barnes & Noble or Amazon or whatever, and I just taught myself. I tried to find a tutor, but they were all either really expensive and I couldn't afford to pay for them, or there weren't very many GRE tutors in the first place. So I taught myself. I set responsibilities for myself, like you have to do at least 2 pages in this every night, and I really tried to work hard, and I passed the GRE and it was fine. I passed it with a higher score than I needed, and it was totally fine.
What is considered passing?
I can't remember what passing was for IC, but it wasn't that bad. I think honestly, this is my sort of cavalier opinion, and maybe this is wrong, but I feel like because IC is a school that doesn't, right, IC doesn't accept SAT scores anymore. Yeah. I think they only ask for the GREs, your GRE score, because they need to. I don't think it was a really big thing in the process of me getting it. I think more so was my interview and my grades from undergrad. So I think those factored in a lot more than my GREs, because personally, I don't think the GRE or the SAT or other standardized tests are a great indicator. I'm from an education background, so I have biased opinions about standardized tests, but I don't think it's a very great indicator of your knowledge. But I still passed, and I still did fine, and it was really stressful, but I did it, and it ended up being a hurdle that I had to pass. But now I look back at it and I'm like, oh, haha, it's so funny, Colleen, that you had a panic attack over something that ended up not being that big of a deal. So if you do feel intimidated by any of the things that you need to get into the program, honestly, talk to the people in your program. Like, I talked to Peter Martin, who is in the education department. He's in charge of a lot of childhood ed. And I talked to him about my concerns with the GRE, and he helped me feel a lot better. And so if you talk to someone, it really helps you feel better, and it also shows them that I'm willing to tell you about my concerns. I'm willing to step up and take responsibility and talk to you like a mature adult. So I wouldn't get too hung up on the GRE or the GMAT or anything like that. Like, it's super important, and obviously I think you should study and things like that, but don't let it ruin your life. Like, I almost like.
It's funny you say that, because about just having that GRE thing, because my friend got into the MBA program without even looking at his GMAT scores. So that kind of confused me. So.
Like, the best tip I have, what I did was, again, I bought like that study book, but the first thing before I even started studying is you take the diagnostic and you see, like, I didn't have to study the science section. Shocker, I was a science major, but my writing was ridiculous. And so I had to sit there and like, I can skip studying the science and just focus on what you know you need to get the scores up on, because it is, I think, an average score, or you get scored on certain sections, I can't remember. But then when it came time to actually take it, like, my writing was still pretty iffy, but like, I passed. So it's one of those things where, yeah, I don't feel like a lot of schools look at it as much anymore. Your interview is going to be so much more important, and especially in grad school, versus maybe when you applied for undergrad, if you had to give your scores. Like, I think I still need SAT scores, but that was now 5 years ago.
And both of us are from education backgrounds, so it can be totally different depending on your background.
Your program, and the program.
Yeah.
Education is on.
So you're talking about your friend who got into the MBA program. So I actually spoke to my advisor just out of curiosity. My advisor in SEPA, my program, he's the executive director of the program. So I actually was just talking to him about like, oh, so law school, just randomly talking about law school, because I'm still trying to figure out what I'm conscious. And so he said, law school, if you apply to law school, they look at your undergraduate GPA versus your graduate GPA, and they take your test scores more, like your LSATs or whatever, more than a master's program, because the master's program, it's a professional degree program, and yes, you need to take like the GMAT or GRE or whatever, but because it's a professional degree program, they care more about how you are a fit or what skills you have that you can bring to the class or how your resume looks or whatever. So your scores are important, but what's more important is like your resume, your idea for going into that program, your application, your essay. That's more important. Because my GRE scores. It wasn't pretty. But so that does help when you go into a professional degree program versus like a law school or PhD programs.
For our business school too, it's professors that make up the board and the dean that are deciding whether you're going there or not. So a lot of it is them looking at you as like a person, like they already know you. You've had them for all of your classes. I know I was an average student, and I don't even want to tell you what I got in the GMAT. And they're looking at you as a whole rather than specific